start out, we're going to go around the room, you're going to say your name, and you're going to give one sentence. This is hard for Unitarians because they like to go on and on and on, and then we never get to talk. Okay, so one sentence about why you think Christianity triumphed. Because there's a whole world of other religions before Christianity shows up, right? So one sentence, and your name, and one sentence about why you think Christianity triumphed. Bruce.
Bruce, and you already said that, but let me see, it was a better fantasy than all the rest.
Better fantasy than all the rest. Barb. That's right. Do you have an idea about why Christianity succeeded?
Because the elites took it over.
The elite took it over. There's a theory. Sue.
I have no idea.
No idea. All right. That's a very legitimate answer. That's what the scholars are sticking with. Right? Diane.
I think the Crusades helped.
The Crusades helped.
Nancy Miller, cheap at twice the price.
Cheap at twice the price.
Oh, think about that.
You have to unpack that one.
Mary Wavell here, and I think Jesus Christ was a compelling human being.
Compelling human being. Okay. Bill.
Ben.
Sorry. Wrong one. Ben Agar.
Sergeant B. They were tortured a lot.
They were tortured a lot.
Martyrs.
Lots of martyrdom. Good one.
Ruth Agar, I think there was a great need for people to have something in their lives to help them.
Something in their lives to help them. Ooh, okay.
Would you repeat?
Okay. Ruth said she thinks that the appeal was that it was something, they wanted something comforting. They wanted something helpful.
I think Christianity, the Trinitarian Christianity was more aggressive than the Confederators and persecuted the other ones out of existence.
Okay. Did you guys hear that?
No.
Okay.
Do we have a
Frank?
microphone?
We do, but
Can you shout out?
I shall. Frank said he thinks that the Christians persecuted the pagans out of existence. Okay.
Kill the wall.
Shelley.
Yeah, I think it was a political deal with Constantine, and I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Shelley is saying she thinks there's some kind of a political deal going with Constantine, Emperor Constantine.
Kathleen Quinn, and I'm not sure, but I'd vote for the elites and the political deal.
The elite and the political. Okay.
Anita Martinez, and I think the Christians just co-opted every other religion and pagans and turned it into their own celebrations like Christmas and solstice and stuff like that.
Huh. All right. They co-opted and used. They created this. They used their previous pagan religions and folded them into their own systems. The old Christian system. Ruth.
Ruth Dean, and I don't know.
Don't know. That's a good archaeologist response.
Lily Belzer. I missed the question, but I'm hearing.
Why did Christianity triumph? What have you been told? What's your hunch?
I guess they were the coolest thing in town, and stronger wins.
Coolest and strongest.
I agree, and I think Paul spread it round and round the Mediterranean area, and then it spread from there.
Okay. Leah's saying hyperactive Paul spread it all over the Mediterranean. Okay.
Ray Shewers, as mentioned earlier, the strong combination of politics and religion. Constantine started more or less, but now Christianity has won, but now they're losing.
Oh, okay. Races. They won because of political stuff, but now they're losing.
John, I agree with Lee. Saul was the uber salesperson. Life was tough under Rome. Jews were not a proselytizing people. If you want to be Jews, there's hundreds of commandments. Christianity, 10 commandments.
Easy peasy, right.
I'm Steve, it's the wine.
It's the wine! It's the wine! Wine in that wafer. Woo!
I'm Breeden, and I do think that a lot of things that people have said probably had a hand in it, but I think Constantine and politics pulled it over the top.
Constantine and politics. Hold it over the top. Okay.
Alana, I don't know.
You don't know. Good archaeologist answer. Okay.
Barbara, there are so many good answers here already that it's hard to know exactly what pulled it over, other than people wanting something positive out of their difficult lives.
Wanted something positive in their difficult lives. Okay.
Carol, I'm pretty much in agreement with Barbara that the timing was just really good and people were looking for something.
The timing was good. People were looking for something positive in their lives, says Carol. What do you think? Why did Christianity win, Marianne? I'll come back to you. I will. I'll come back to you. All right.
Carol, I think it was probably the stronger armies.
Stronger armies. Woo! Okay, thank you, Terrell.
Mark, I think it's just simply the latest iteration in a long line of religious beliefs that come and go for a whole bunch of different reasons.
Wow, that's an interesting theory. Christianity is merely the latest iteration in a whole set of religious traditions that come and go in human history.
Jean, and I agree with most of the previous.
I agree. That's also a very good archaeologist response. Yes, Ron.
Well, I'm kind of confounded by the kind of the foundation of the answers, that Christianity is the winner when Islam has more people. Of the Abrahamic religion.
Right now, yeah.
Looks to me like Islam's the winner.
Pulling ahead. Why do you think Islam's pulling ahead?
What do you mean pulling ahead? It's outnumbered.
Why?
Well, it's been around and been proselytized
allows
and conquered longer.
I think that Ray has it right. It's all about population. And
population.
Birth control not being available in some of those religions, and 4 wives that multiplies your children's possibilities.
How many babies you got that survived adulthood, huh?
They didn't do mission war. They did invasion.
Oh, well, okay. Any other thoughts?
No.
Polly?
No,
Yeah?
I don't know.
Okay, you're a good archaeologist. Polly?
I think that Jesus was a very charismatic person, and he was a real person, as opposed to these other gods who were ghosts, or not. So he appealed in a realistic, human way.
Okay. Hey.
No idea.
No idea.
Waiting to hear.
Waiting to hear. Marianne.
Well, I think the fact that there can be salvation for anybody is a real draw for rich and poor. Anybody can go to heaven, rich or poor.
Anybody can go to heaven. It's popular. Okay.
Can I suggest one?
What?
Is it possible that so much money was being spent on statues and shrines and things to Isis that the little people became angry, and when they realized there was another way of approaching life that would give help to all of them, they decided to serve.
Okay. Ruth is suggesting there's a rebellion of the lower classes who realize so much is going into the expensive, elaborate temple materials and not very much to them. Okay.
But people like magic. And you know what? That's the Christian thing. They are offering the impossible. They're offering the impossible. And it's all something that you get by believing in magic.
Magic.
Yeah.
Magic. Yeah. Oh, all right. Do you have any other contributions here? Well, here's something that I heard when I was over. I've been doing religion at the University of Minnesota, which has a great great religion stuff over at the University of Minnesota. There really some really world famous people over there. I have heard repeatedly people say, you know, the ISIS religion should have won. And Christianity instead, Christianity is a fluke. Christianity pulled ahead. The ISIS religion, of which we got a little touch when we went to the Minneapolis Institute of Art's show. We got to see the ISIS religion in its kind of mid-phase. They're saying there are just a few small things that made Christianity pull ahead. But it shouldn't have, because the ISIS religion should have been the winner. Okay, I'm going to tell you some of the other reasons. You guys have given your reasons for Christianity pulling ahead make a lot of sense. They do. And as recently as in the 60s, a sociologist sat down and he looked at the tables of the families in Rome. And of the leading patrician families, 200 families, there are only 2 families that actually have sisters. We know that the Romans throw out girl babies. They don't like girl babies. If you have a girl baby, you have to pay a dowry when she gets married. So the Romans were really into throwing out kids. And we find a lot of little, infant skeletons and stuff when we dig up old cities. Who didn't throw out babies? The Jews never threw out babies. And so this sociologist was saying, okay, so a religion that starts from Jewish roots, like the Jesus follower movement, that doesn't throw out babies is going to be popular with women. And it's going to be popular with slaves, who were some of the thrown out babies that got picked up. Okay? So this sociologist is saying, okay, here, it's going to grow among women, it's going to grow among slaves. And he's going to say, it's more caring, okay? Who doesn't love how caring it is? Who doesn't love how it's about kindness and peace and treating your neighbors well? Who doesn't love all of that? Well, another appeal that will be listed is, it's really old because it's based on those Jewish roots. The Romans loved Judaism because it was really, really old. It had all that antiquity, so it had all that authority. Okay. ISIS religion. Egypt, the temples in Egypt, we're talking about 6,000 BCE. We're talking about equally ancient. And the Isis and Osiris myths are very comprehensive. I don't know how many of you know what the story is. The myths, you see a lot of the statues over there. And they don't, because we are in Minnesota, it's a family-friendly exhibit, they don't tell you the story of Isis and Osiris and what really happened. Okay, so I'm going to tell you. Osiris Isis is the earth, and she surrounds the Nile. She embraces the Nile. And Osiris will be the Nile, which brings life to Egypt. And they have a happy marriage, this brother-sister marriage. Everything works out. They have figured out who squeezes the toothpaste to where when they get. So they have a perfect marriage as adults, and they're very happy, and they do good things, and they bring fertility to the land every year, and annual floods every year. It's just wonderful. And Osiris has a jealous brother. His name is Seth, and he decides he's gonna chop up Osiris and kill him. First he kills him, then he chops him up into 14 pieces. Now it just so happens there's 14 temples along the Nile, and for different places his body could have been stuck. Isis comes home. Oh my God, where's my husband? Ah! And she has to find the body parts, so she would be visiting all of those 14 temples along the Nile, right? She gets all the body parts together. What's missing? The part you need if you're going to make babies. She makes one out of wood. And then she sits on his dead body, okay? And there was a statue over there at the Minneapolis Institute of Art of a prone Osiris and a kite, a bird, sitting on his tummy. She is getting pregnant, and she is conceiving the new god, Horus. Okay? This woman can't do anything. I mean, she's a super mom. She puts her husband back together. There is a very old statue. I think it's a picture on your handout. That's a very old statue. She is often pictured holding baby Horace, who she figured out how to conceive from her dead husband. And he is her husband reborn, of course. Right? He is. He's her nephew and her son. Ooh, wow. She is a super goddess. Now, when Alexander the Great conquers the whole world, he dies at a drinking party at age 33 or so, right? And his generals split up the world. The general who gets Egypt, the big prize, because Egypt it's the Ukraine of the old world. It's the Iowa. It's the breadbasket. It produces so much wheat, it can support the whole Roman Empire and its wheat alone. His general named Ptolemy gets Egypt. And Ptolemy is no dope. He didn't get to be a general by being stupid. And he figures, I gotta get in tight with my people, these Egyptians. Now, I don't know Egyptian, I just speak Greek. But, hey, I'm gonna build a big temple to Isis and Osiris because that's their most favorite gods. And he does. And he creates beautiful temples, especially up there near his capital. He stays up near the delta, the top of the delta. And he has this Isis and Osiris religion that he's developing. He, financially supports the priests, etc. He's taming this religion, and he's taming it. He's also part of, in this period, the trade is really picking up around the Mediterranean. And people are being much more exposed to one another's religions. Okay. We tend to think of these temple religions as being something like they're political. Like if you live in Athens in the 5th century, you go up and you go to the festival at the Acropolis and you bring up the little new robe for the statue and you bring offerings. The temples, it was a patriotic sort of religion, but we've got to remember those cities are smaller. We've got to remember those people have no TV, they have no radio, they don't have symphony orchestras, they don't have the array of colored clothing that we're wearing in this room. They don't see the colors and delights in their lives that we see every day just by turning on the radio, walking down the street.
Think again.
I'm sorry?
Think again. Not everybody sees color.
Oh, okay. Not everybody. Okay. People hunger for festivity. They hunger for meat. When you have a religious festival, you get to kill an animal, a sacrificial animal, and then everybody gets meat. Ordinarily, everybody's living on bread and oil, bread and olive oil, or vegetables, beans and peas. Most people live vegetarian lives. And in fact, the Roman army were the healthiest Romans. They had a fairly strict vegetarian diet. Porridge, and a little bit of diluted wine. You didn't know how to make the kind of wine we drink, so you had to dilute it. Religious festivals of any sort were fun. We go to opera, we go to movies. People went to religious festivals, and they were beautiful. What we hear about ISIS, the ISIS temples that began to appear all over the Mediterranean by the end of the 2nd century, by around the year 200 in our era, there were ISIS temples all over the Mediterranean. And what we hear about them is, there are beautiful colored painted panels in them. And we hear about religious processions. We hear a lot about the musical instruments that are played in ISIS processions. On your handout, I showed you, I gave you one of the hymns to ISIS. There have been several found around the Mediterranean. This is one of the latest ones. So this is one that would have been found around the year, coming up on 200. And let me just look at it with you. You will see ISIS has, I'm going to have to keep this. Do you have any extras? Take on, wild woman that I am. Okay. So, Isis is getting praised. Thank you, Ben. Isis is getting praised. Carpocrates is another name for her son Horus. Here's another thing. People love those Egyptian words. They thought those Egyptian words were a lot of fun, and they were magical. In the same way that in the Middle Ages, we thought Latin words were pretty fun and magical, which is where we get the word hocus pocus. It comes from hicus corpus deus, the first words of the Mass. This is the body of the Lord. Okay? But they loved Egyptian words. This thing just goes right off, naming all these magical words. They thought, in the ancient world, a lot of, they would think, oh, Zeus, that's like Osiris, or Mercury. He's like Hermes, the Greek Hermes, or he's like the Egyptian god Thoth, the really clever guy, the little engineer, the guy that invents writing. So they saw people traveling around the Mediterranean. They saw likenesses between different communities' gods, and they would make that equivalence in their minds. Isis has acquired the equivalence not only of Zeus's wife, Hera, right? Juno. She has acquired the qualities of Demeter, or Ceres, the goddess of grain. And remember, the goddess of grain, she's the one, Ceres is the one in Greek and Roman stories whose daughter is stolen and taken down to Hades and eats 6 pomegranate seeds and can't come back for 6 months of the year. Then we have winter, and then when she comes back, we have spring. That's Persephone or Proserpina, okay? But she comes from Egypt. She's part of the whole fertility thing of the Nile. She is the goddess of grain. Here she gets credit for everything. In line 4, every good season am I. I make the seasons of the year. I make the beginning and the end of the calendar. In the beginning is me, and I'm it. I am the framer of the calendar of the world that we know, okay? I was the first person to build temples. In number 8, I'm the one who figured out how you measure grain. I'm in charge of all of that. I'm in charge of trade, right? She's getting credit for the sistrum in line 9. The sistrum is a special little thing. It's like, you saw some at the exhibit. We have, there's symbols, there's 2 big bronze discs, bam! Well, the sistrum has it has a whole rows of little symbols on it. So when you shake it, you get the sound of little tinkling bells. People thought that was just cute. They loved it. I invented hunting. I invented judges and lawgivers in the cities. She's talking about magistrates, cities and magistrates. I help with the rearing of children. She's taken on the role of some goddesses that are supposed to help kids grow up. I help, I discovered the mixing of wine and water, because if you drink the wine straight, you're not going to make it through the evening. I invented hymns and music. Wow. Flutes and pipes. And a biggie for her, it's line 16. I forever attend among those in court so that no injustice may be done. She is a lawgiver. This is very important to the lower classes who are always getting overtaxed and beaten up. Okay? She also, something about Bacchic rebels. She's taking on some of the characteristics of Dionysus. She is taking on there's something about, I cleanse all the earth, I live in mountains, seas, and rivers. She's taking on a lot of geology there. And she is also taking on the crescent moon. And you will sometimes see her with the moon, with a crescent above her head. Okay? She is everywhere. My gosh. And line 22, I think the one that really sticks for people. I welcome while dealing justice to unlawful loves. I hate the accursed. She upholds the right. She is justice embodied. And she helps physicians heal people. She is an all-purpose kind of girl. Yes, Ron?
What are the unlawful loves?
Oh, I think that's when you take a shine to somebody you aren't married to. Okay? You're not supposed to do that. That's pretty bad. Because children are property. We want to make sure the guy you married is supporting the right kids. Right. Yeah. She is, and this is remarkable to me that she's female and she is so powerful in their vision. And she's, I think you saw one of the very startling statues at the end of this exhibit. Yowzers. Did everybody get to see this exhibit? Yes. You saw the exhibit and you came away, I'm sure, with many questions because nobody's explaining to you what a super kid she is. But not only is she this mother and takes care of this baby and raises him and is responsible for all the fertility of Egypt. Let's find this wonderful picture of her. She is one sexy girl. Anybody else remember that statue at the end of the exhibit? She's wearing this thin linen dress. Yes. She might as well be, it's like a wet t-shirt contest. Where should I find this? I know you might have to wait for this. But it's pretty. It's like, God. I looked at it like, just her mother knows she's wearing that. Here we go. Whoa! Yeah. Whoa. He's dry. All right. This Superwoman. Yeah, Superwoman. It is a beautiful statue. It's an extraordinary statue, and the statue is whole. Okay? And did anybody else wonder, going through that exhibit, why those statues were so big and in such large pieces? They're buried in the sand, but they're in big. I'm going to just pass this one more. She is too good looking. Woo!
Without a head.
Well, yeah, necks come off easily, but Henry VIII could tell you that. But you go through the exhibit, and you see this, two whole cities. They were like the Vatican Museum, like they were great big show cities. There's not a lot of excitement in the ancient world. I mean, you live in a small village, you live on bread and oil all year. You get to go to a religious festival once in a while, but you basically you want to travel for adventures, and if you can. You get out and you go to shrines. People went to shrines. Pagans went to shrines. And they went to shrines all over. And you go to a shrine because it's a really beautiful building. It's like the craft house in a Swedish town. Okay? In that shrine, they have the city treasury. They often keep the grain or the harvest in the shrine. And they keep their best art. Their best artists adorn that shrine. And they're expecting people to come to the shrine who are not native to the town. Every town has its own like eponymous heroes, and it's like honoring. As a pagan, you're honoring the ancestors. So if I go to visit a friend in Teos or something, and the polite thing for me to do is take me down to your temple. Ooh, show me off your temple. When I get to the temple, because I'm a visitor, there is an inscription. We find these inscriptions. And it tells me, as a visitor, what's expected at this temple, because it's expecting me to want to worship, and that I don't know that this God would like an offering of walnuts. I should bring a bowl of walnuts. And I should take my shoes off there, not there. Okay? So we have these inscriptions that let us know that people are going from shrine to shrine, and they love visiting the shrines. We also have inscriptions that tell us that people love coming to these temples because that's where you'd host a party. You don't have room in your house for a big party. You host a party in the temple precincts. Also, the temple... Okay, there's no bathrooms in a lot of these little Greek villages, Roman villages. Temple precincts are holy. You do not powder your nose in the temple precincts. So it's a nice park and it's clean. So you have a party there, and you would sponsor a party, and when you sponsor a party, you'd usually start out with a sacrifice, and you'd sacrifice a bull or a cow or something, or a big sheep, and everybody gets meat, and the party is there at the temple. They're social, they're visited, they're beautiful, they're colorful, they show off the art of a community, and pagans had a good time. We also have this impression that paganism was an uncaring religion. No, there were funeral societies. There were like mutual burial societies. There was, whenever you gave a feast at the temple, you fed anybody who came. You fed the poor. The pagans took good care of each other too. All right. As luck would have it this week, I happened to pick up a review of a book by a guy who teaches at Yale, and he's been going around finding these inscriptions. He's working off of this inscription material from the temples of the ancient world. And he's also looking at the size of the early Christian churches. The early Christian churches are smaller than this room. In other words, who gets in there? The elite. If I'm an ordinary Jesus follower, I have to meet in the cemetery. It is looking like his statement, his name is McMullen. McMullen is asserting that Christianity was appropriated very rapidly by the upper classes. And it was taken on so that they would have power. The advantages Christianity has when it comes along are pretty concrete. Number one, Christianity comes along just at the time that they invent the Codex. This is a newfangled device. It is so easy to use. I can find pages I can read. It has it all over the scroll. And Christians used codexes. They used handy little books. Okay? Number two, they come along at a time when the Romans have roads everywhere. They come along at a time when the empire is huge and its extent spreads everywhere. And they come along at a time when there's a feeling that all the gods may be related. They can be, one can be the other, one can be the other. Everybody in the pagan world knows that if you have an earache, you can either go to the temple, you can find some shrine, maybe a priest will help you with your earache, or you can go to the marketplace and somebody will help you with your earache. Okay? Or you can get healing any place. It's not an unfriendly world, the pagan world. It's a very nice world. Yet, the Christian story is that Jesus lives, Jesus talks to some people, they write down what he says, then it takes off. And it grows in house churches. The houses aren't that big either. Can't be house churches. Let me give us some statistics on that growth. I think I have given you a timeline on the handout there. And the Christian story would like us to believe that Christianity grows every generation by 200%. Okay? And they will tell us that pretty soon it covers the whole empire. So by the time that the Emperor Constantine comes along, and he has a nice long reign of 30 years, 31 actually, that the empire is ready to accept Christianity. Okay, Constantine. Why would Constantine have taken up with Christianity?
I sure as hell don't know.
Okay. All right. He has too big an empire. How does he get in touch with his people? He needs an alternative. This happens to be a time when he wants to move his nobles out and he wants a little more power. He comes upon an organization that not only has priests and deacons, but bishops. And it has them well organized. He jumps on Paul's organizational skills. It gives him some administrative power.
Who has the organizational skills?
Paul and other spreaders.
Apostles?
Yeah. Whoever they are. And he can jump on that and use it. And he can enrich these bishops. And who doesn't want to become a Christian bishop? Because if you become a Christian bishop, Constantine will give you a villa where you can take your wife and your concubines and all your kids, and then you'll have 600 slaves to work your wheat fields. So I want to become a Christian bishop. There was all kind of financial incentive to join this new thing that Constantine was making. Right? That's one of the assertions. Constantine is a lucky guy. He stays in power for 31 years. That's pretty phenomenal. Whereas, you look down at 361, 363, there's a guy named Julian the Apostate. The Emperor Julian. And the Emperor Julian was a good, he liked the old pagan system. The old pagan system, you don't have to believe anything. You just have to enjoy. You do find comfort from the community. You find comfort from the community celebrations. You can be a Stoic. You can go home and discuss philosophy. But you have something very comfortable for you. It would work for us as Unitarian Universalists, I think, to be pagans. I think it would. I think I'd be very comfortable. I could be, when I sat down with my friends, I'd discuss Stoicism and Epicureanism with them. But we have parties. We travel. Julian tries to restore paganism. He stands up for paganism and says, hey, quit tearing down the temples. You guys are tearing down the temples. Don't do it. He starts to restore, but he only lives 2 years.
Maybe that's why.
I don't think it is, because I liked him a lot. He's a really nice guy. As much as I know about it. Then there's this very powerful Christian emperor, Theodosius. He lives how many years? Good Lord, he's on there for almost 15 years. The guys that are speaking up for Christianity or using Christianity tend to have long lives. There's another, it's just a chance. And we're stuck with them. Now, I've studied in there some of the persecutions. And we hear a lot about the persecutions. We hear about the persecutions under Tiberius. He was persecuting everybody. And Nero, we hear about that. We hear a lot of persecution stories from the Christians. We don't hear the persecution stories from the pagans.
No. Oh, it's because the Christians won.
Ramsay MacMullen, who teaches at Yale, says he is certain that for sure, by far, more pagans were crucified and beheaded by Christians than Christians were crucified and beheaded by pagans.
What does McMullen think of Christianity?
He says it needs to be reassessed in its beginnings. Its beginnings need to be reassessed and based on good archaeological research.
Because of the corruption of Christianity?
Yes, it's very, very corrupt. It was taken over by a government. If you look at the, we had a comment here about how Christianity is going to lose. Well, why do all those monks and priests, why do they wear these long dresses? They're imitating togas. They're imitating Roman togas. Why is a bishop's hat called a mitre? It's called a mitre because it's an imitation of the Roman Mithras cult hats. There was another religion, either Isis religion, the Lucinian religion. There were all these pagan religions out there. And one of the popular ones in the army was the Mithras cult, which was also about fertility. Very interesting. Mithras cult spread all the way up to England and France, Germany. The army loved it. The statues we see of Mithras, he's stabbing a bull, and one of them, he's stabbing a bull and wheat is coming out. Fertility. Fertility always works. You need it. Mithraism is very popular. The Mithra hats, the Mithra priests, been adopted by, this is the Roman army, this is the Roman government. So the Roman Catholic Church, as we have it today, is based on Roman army and government. What happened to these gorgeous cities that at the mouth of the Nile? Well, they sunk. But even before they sunk it, even in those first eras, I think I put it on there, the emperors began to unloosen mobs and their soldiers and the monks to tear down the pagan temples. Okay? And this beautiful city, the reason that those statues are in big hunks is because a mob grabbed the statue and ran down and threw it in the water. Okay? Otherwise, it would have been in little pieces and would have been reused in some kind of, roadway or some other part of the city, probably in Cairo. But it was actually destroyed by Christian mobs. And you heard what happened to the library at Alexandria, right? I think I put in there.
Dispute that.
Oh, well, and there's such a long tradition about it. It probably could be disputed, and it's amazing that the story is preserved. Around the year 415, the head librarian is a woman named Hypatia. Okay? And she's protecting the library in Alexandria. And Christian mobs, abetted by Roman soldiers, go and destroy the library. And of course they kill her. Right? We know that around that year, 415, okay, if you're believing the Christian propaganda, you're believing that by that time most of the empire is Christian. I think there is general agreement by just about all archaeologists that by the year 400, not even half the empire was Christian. Not even half. It had not spread like that. It would be the upper echelons who were Christian. And I want to make sure that you people have some time for questions. What did I want to make sure? Ooh, the fact that we are finding, the Nag Hammadi library out in the desert, that we're finding all these documents today, lets us know that there was a ruthless suppression. People had to hide all of those because things were being destroyed on purpose, purposefully destroyed, as this city was purposefully destroyed before it finally dropped in due to an earthquake of some sort. But religion, and every reason to be a credible religion. What a wonderful, comforting goddess Isis was. She's a mother. She's a Madonna. She's the queen of heaven. And one of the really intelligent people, if you ever had time to kill, a really intelligent 3rd century Roman from North Africa who essentially went to Oxford, Cambridge, got his training at Athens, became a great writer. He wrote on a lot of philosophy. His name was Apuleius, and he wrote a wonderful novel about a man who is fooling around in Thessaly. We all know northern Greece is full of witchcraft, right? Thessaly, and he gets himself turned into a donkey. And he suffers as a donkey. It's like the story of Lassie. She gets lost and people are mean to her and stuff before she gets home. He had bad things happen to him as a donkey. But then one night, he has a dream, and the goddess Isis comes to him in the dream. And Apuleius writes this. Apuleius was an initiate of the Isis cult, and he really believed in it. And it is gorgeous. He talks about this beautiful procession, the priests in white linen robes, the music, the roses, and that when he was initiated into the Isis cult, he saw heaven and hell, the beginning of time, the end of time, and all the stars. He was also assured when he joined that, for sure, he's not going to Hades, he's going to Eleusis. There was an afterlife for him, but he just got the assurance he would be going to the nice places. Not Eleusis, I meant to say the Elysian fields. He'd be going to the fields full of flowers when he died. Why? I'm not going to read all of this wonderful stuff to you. It is beautiful. Why? Why wouldn't the Isis religion have won? It just didn't have enough champions, and I think it was political. I'm interested in some thoughts that you may have. Ron?
We're interested in Tahiti. And the informant we had talked about the missionaries coming there and going out to the village to try to convert the people. And they all got eaten.
Missionaries are sent by our God so that we have fresh meat. Right.
So the next missionary that came dealt with the first group he met because he assumed that was the leaders.
Oh.
Converted them, everything worked.
And it was, so Ron, it's a political thing. Where's the power? They decide what the religion is. Kathleen, and then I'm going to give you Ray.
What does occur to me is that the Judeo-Christian and Muslim traditions, they're all male gods. They're all patriarchal societies. The whole concept of having a female goddess in charge of everything, they were looking for some other way to get around that.
That is, boy, there's a whole chapter we could go into there. Because, look at, the Roman Catholic religion has had to develop the Mary cult. I mean, we want a female deity, and yet we can't have her on top. And among the Nag Hammadi,
women are a threat.
Yeah. In the Nag Hammadi stuff, there's a lot of information about God being female. There's some documents in which God is a female. Very interesting, spooky stuff. Ray.
Constantine was naughty. He had sinned a lot. And he liked this religion because they could forgive all his sins.
Now, I don't know if they had forgiveness in there yet, but they did it. But they had something like you were assured of an afterlife. And they also did a lot of, they are the reason that we have all these stories about Christians being eaten by lions in an arena is because the Christian, what do they have? They have the Gospels, they have the letters of Paul, and then they needed some kind of literature and had to be nice Christian literature, so they wrote a lot of stories about martyrs. And some of them are a hoot. But, yeah, really. But they wrote a lot of martyr stories. The Romans had a variety of literature. The Romans had wonderful stories. They had romances, they had Romeo and Juliet stories, they had pirate stories, they had pirate fights, they had fairy tales, they had everything. But the Christians were confined, and so they produced all these martyr stories, and they suppressed anything pagan. There's another thing that Christianity did. Christianity publicized a rule that if you take this faith, this is the only faith you can have. You can't go visiting the other shrines. You can't go to see your cousin in Tios and go visit the shrine in Tios. You can only stick with Christianity. That exclusivism is remarkable. Pagans never had that kind of exclusivism. Their attitude was, wow, this is the way the Spanish understand fertility. I'm going to join that festival. Pagans enjoyed everything. There was a lot of give and take. It works for other people. I think the give and take induced in them more religious thinking. It allowed them to think about, that would be rewarding for people. It helped them understand why people would go after things. And whereas the Christianity is a very narrow, only get this through Christianity. Audrey.
Yes, you were confirming almost everything that I learned in seminary, but forgot kind of a lot of, since that was like 35 years ago. But just a couple points is that I think it's important for everybody to remember sort of how Christianity comes up today is after all kinds of 2,000 years of iterations. And it's largely constructed. The kernel of Jesus' story that's there is just a kernel, and it's just elaborated. But I wish I could remember the Hypatia or Hypatia, whatever that said. There is a movie out
about her.
Yes, and I can't remember the name of it. Unfortunately, I could go and kind of think.
She's the librarian in Alexandria.
Well, yeah, and she also. I mean, I think they have a hard time knowing everything about her life, but they also think that she was a teacher and a philosopher, and they sort of claim her in the pagan and non-theist tradition. But the story of her life, and again, it's a dramatization, of course. It's not biography, but it's it gives you a wonderful feel of kind of that mix of belief system, the Jews and the Christians, all in Alexandria, the pagans, and it was the Christians who had no tolerance. And, the pagans and the Jews, it's like, let's all just live together. Everyone can just, whatever. And of course, but anyway, if you search around Googling, I'm sure you'll come up with the movie. You have it? You have it?
Yeah, Agora.
It's called Agora?
In 2009.
Okay.
I I really recommend it. It's a fabulous movie.
All this is not to say that there aren't some cool things in Christianity too. Yeah, Marianne.
Say a little bit more about the upper crust, who were the early kernel of Christianity, and they wanted power. Well, who had the power, and what was the power grab, or how did that work?
I think the power rests with the emperor and his army, and as far as I know, the emperor and his army, and he has, and then the bishops seem to be the only other power group he can work through outside of his army. And a lot of those later emperors, they become emperor because they were head of the army. So I think it's either you work through your bishops or you're working through your army on the way down. And I'm noticing it's 10:20, and I don't want you guys to not find your place